Hello, so this is going to be obviously a live stream. Hopefully notification goes out. I hope everybody's having a good Easter, Passover or whatever. Although again, we're all trapped at home at the moment, aren't we? So this stream in particular was going to be more talk about viral load, which is one of the very interesting theories coming out about coronavirus. So if you don't know about viral load, because it's pretty new to all of us, it's the idea that the more exposure you have to the virus, the more at risk you'll be when you develop the infection. So basically, if you had the virus on the surface somewhere, you touched it, then touched your face, you might only get such a small amount of viral load that you might not get any symptoms. You may be asymptomatic, or you might feel like you've got the cold, a cold. If you get a bit of a bigger viral load from maybe somebody sneezing or coughing near you, you might get a viral load where you feel like you've got really nasty flu. And then the idea of the bad viral load stuff is that basically, if you've been exposed to a really, really sort of, close quarters like doctors are, that's why they're getting it so badly, even with no underlying health conditions. Now, somebody in the chat just said viral load isn't a new theory. It's not a new theory in terms of diseases in general, but it's only recently being talked about on the news towards the coronavirus sort of stuff. Yeah, I remember you've donated, Russell. You need to post your entire Discord name now, otherwise I can't add you. You're going to have to explain it for us, D. We're not going to be going off and searching random things if you can't be bothered to explain them in the chat. Yeah, well, this is the thing, Arnold. I was listening to a bloke earlier, and you were saying, as much as PPE is very important for doctors, another very important thing for doctors is actually having very, good airflow in the wards and things like that. And he was saying, in general, that works better if you have, extractor fans in a ward and fresh air coming in, than if you've just got a stuffy ward, even if people have, masks on. No, it doesn't bother me, Infinity. All right, thank you, Sir Russell. Let me add you now and get that sorted. I want the other one, not that one. Cool, Richard. How's that going? How's your shed project going as well? But yeah, let me add you. It doesn't like your name. Let me try cutting it and repasting it in a couple of times, because sometimes Discord can get really weird with that. There we go, it's worked. I think sometimes it puts almost like an invisible space in front of people's names. Sadly, Pickle Ivan, not really. They suspect that's the case, but they still think there's a lot of factors they don't particularly know with it. So I think it's, for most people, it's being a case of, not being what was the word I was looking for? So it's a case of, being more cautious than. Yeah, the problem as well, D, with ventilators, from what I understand, is the longer somebody's kept on ventilators, the lower their chance of recovery actually is. So ventilator's fine if somebody manages to pull through and just needs that extra oxygen, or, like manual breathing essentially done for them, assisted breathing. But if they don't get over it within a couple of days, they're in real trouble. Not too bad here, wow. This is where it might get a bit funny. The UK is having one of the worst cases per capita at the moment, as in, per 1 million people, we're getting the most deaths. Now, the issue for that is, and I'd rather people didn't start drama in the stream, it's bad enough on Discord and, general. But the problem is with the UK numbers is it seems per million people we are getting some of the most horrific numbers coming out. The US might rival us at some stage for that. But I think a lot of that is because the government did too little too late in their regards to dealing with it. And apparently the UK figures would be even worse if lots of nursing home figures were being added, which they're not. There's also a very controversial thing that's going on at the moment, where, what was the problem? That apparently in nursing homes, they've almost got like a do not resuscitate order put on for like every elderly person in them. So basically, they've got this issue where they're telling family members of like old people in nursing homes sign a do not resuscitate order because the old people there aren't worth the effort. So there's lots of quite, sinister things or just quite, frightening things from a normal medical perspective going on at the moment. Again, you can expect some of that with emergency stuff, but it's still not all that comforting to actually read about it. Personally, in terms of comfort for myself, UFC, I prefer the Fushida series. The S10, most people kind of think is quite iconic and everything. Yes, respirators do work, Pickle Ivan, and what we were saying about the viral load theory is that the more respiratory protection you put between yourself and the virus, and the more you limit exposure, the more likely you might be okay. It might be, John, I really don't know. The problem is it's going to be very bad in some places, for example, in Africa, and we just won't know about the numbers because there's no medical infrastructure there to test. Oh, and going on about the UK, we've also got a massive problem with testing, where the government every day will wheel out a new excuse why it's not been testing properly yet. Arnold, similar thing. I think we're kind of preemptively planning that almost. Right, here's a problem designated driver, with a picture of Rick Astley. Soviet masks use GOST filters, like nearly all the old Soviet and Warsaw Pact masks. GOST filters, it's very difficult to get new GOST filters that, reliably or at a good price. There are a couple, like some modern Chinese, Russian, and Czech filters are still GOST. You can get some okay, but there's also bad 3D printed to GOST adapt, like NATO to GOST adapters. Sadly, UFC, it's the same thing going on pretty much everywhere with every mask. Oh yeah, don't forget to like the stream, everybody, if you're coming on. Alright, Dwarven Liner. Yeah, if you want a designated driver, name of a filter that definitely works, that you might still be able to get hold of, have a look for these. I'll show you the exact filter. So the brand is AVEC. They're a Czech company. It's got a big long AVEC name because it's just a general multi-purpose gas filter, this one. But the important bit is on it where you'll see it say GOST somewhere. Yeah, GOST OZ40X4. I don't know how well the light's going to focus on that there, but hey, GOST OZ40X4. Israeli filters, as far as I'm aware, are 40mm NATO, not DIN, so I don't think they'd fit the GP5. Sadly, Pickle Ivan, in most countries the answer is no, because it's just considered too much of an expense. Bear in mind, for example, in the UK, they can't even get FFP3 style masks to doctors. If they can't get masks to doctors, there's no way they're going to make proper gas masks for civilians. Although, all right, Maximus, although that does get brought up a lot, weirdly. If the government before World War II could make enough gas masks for the general, civilian population, why can't the government now get enough masks to medical personnel? Right, Waylon, it's a complicated thing. Old FP5s are GOST, newer FP5s aren't, basically. I need to at some point find where all my FP5 and FP211 filters are and do a video using some calipers to show you like the difference in the threads. It seemed what happened is old FP5 filters, although they were marked NATO, were GOST filters, which is why they worked on both the old Soviet masks and newer NATO masks. What then happened was at some point they changed the tooling but kept the labels the exact same. That's just general milsup. Those hoses, Christoph, are actually for rebreather setups. All right, be careful of people ignoring social distancing, then I guess Limsky, because there's apparently a lot of people just, doing stupid shit. Apparently, some supermarkets now have a one-way round policy, so that must be annoying if you go down an aisle, miss something, and then need to go back. Yeah, it's strange, M1A2. I think it is literally just a thing of they were GOST and then they weren't, but metal threaded filters don't screw in as well as plastic filters into a lot of things. Unless you can provide me with a storage shed, William, that's not going to happen. It's actually neater than it was weeks ago. They all say that, Wayland. What's the date on it? But unless you do a proper fit test, you won't really know. I've already got some, Richard, but hopefully the ones I have don't stop working. But the issue I've had with mine was they were meant to come with a battery and didn't. Luckily, I did have the right size battery in the drawer. But it pisses me off when they're advertised meant to come with a load of stuff and they don't. Not like somebody had opened it and taken it out, just whoever was in the factory was too lazy to pack the box properly. Our local Iceland doesn't have a one-way system. No, I mean, a more recent S10 UFC is more likely to be in better condition, but that applies to any mask. But S10s were the exact same design, as far as I'm aware, all throughout, the period they were made, unless you got one of the S10 variants. But no, I haven't seen that video, Good Cats. But there's a bit of an argument going on here now whether people should wear masks in public like some countries are doing. And the government keeps saying we don't see any reason why people should need to wear masks. But that's probably just because they can't even provide doctors with masks, let alone regular people. I'm assuming something like this is like an MOF5 filter, is it, Thomas Patriot? But the CM4 is GOST, so if it's a filter like this is still GOST. If it's a 40mm NATO one, then it won't work. Some point, Charlie, yes. I'll probably do a day where I do a stream in the afternoon, if that's what you mean, and then one in the evening. But, alright, Peach. But yeah, a lot of it's going to depend on what I've got on the day, in all honesty. Because if I've got a day where I have to end up doing a lot of stuff around the house, then not really. But I mean, obviously at the moment where I'm not going to even be at work in the foreseeable future because we have no clue what's going on. Yeah, I think I'll probably end up streaming a bit more, though, as we head into next week and the UK numbers are meant to start getting really scary. So that's when you definitely don't want to go out and do anything. And we can be trying to keep up with the awful, awful numbers coming out of the UK. We've got kind of two problems here, Vanessa. There's some police being overzealous, and then there's also people really pushing the rules. So there's not really an easy answer to it. Oh, and don't forget to like the stream if you're just coming on. Well, Corona's a viral particle threat, UFC, not actually something you need an ABEC filter for. But in general, it's a good idea to have several filters per mask. That way, if you break them, lose them, whatever, you've still got spare filters. But for particle threats, you only need the particle bit that's at the front of filters. I don't know if that's even going to show up with that lighting there. But, particle bits are the simple bits. It was in the Serbian M2V, M1A2. At one point, they used to be about $30 or pounds, plus a bit of postage coming from somewhere like, Serbia, Croatia, or whatever. But now I don't know because all the prices have gone completely insane. No, Myra don't make stuff White Wolf. They just rebrand it, apparently. This is an AVEC filter, which is actually a Czech company. So it's from my CM5 from the Czech Republic. And this is a proper AVEC one. Myra, supposedly, all they do is just rebrand other people's stuff under license and then charge more for it. The problem is, Iron Man, we don't really even have the prison utilities at the moment. I think what some people are suggesting, which is the only good idea I've heard, because some people come up with really stupid ideas that wouldn't work. I think the only idea I've heard so far is people suggesting if it's recorded you did all the stupid shit as well as getting a fine, you get put on like the lowest possible priority for treatment. Thank you, nobody. Depends what you mean by 2 layers of mask, because here's the problem. If you wore another mask under another mask, say you had a surgical mask on under a gas mask, you might break the seal and essentially have almost no mask. But what I suggested in the video that's coming out tomorrow, and I'll try and demonstrate this now, was the idea that, in theory, what you could do, if I can get this actual cover off and demonstrate it. There we go, nobody. See where there's an exhale valve here on a mask? Is maybe put some tissue or something under there, clamp it in, and that way, when you're exhaling, you're at least kind of catching some of the germs coming out your mask to go to other people. But it's hard to say because, again, it depends what you mean by 2 masks, double masking. But I don't know about Scott 3M masks. Scott was a respirator company that was bought out by 3M. So which ones do you mean? Do you mean 3M making some of Scott's old series of masks, or what? Yeah, I might do a specific video on it, White Wolf, if you're on about the you're on about Myra, you're on about what I was saying about the tissues on the thing. I covered it a little bit in the video that comes out tomorrow, but I might try and demonstrate that with several masks. But the point is more, obviously, if you're wearing a regular gas mask, you're not protecting other people from your exhaled breath. That's why people wear surgical masks, but they give you no protection. So the idea would be, I guess, modifying gas masks in an easy way that doesn't damage them. So you also protect other people if you're infected and don't know it yet. Scott aren't previously known as 3M. Good cats. Scott was a company bought out by 3M. Nobody says N95 under bandana for normies, basic 2 layers. Only issue, if you have a bandana on and then you put an N95 on top of it, the seal won't be as good, and then it defeats the purpose of having that N95 on. It's like the same problem you see in like films where people have balaclavas on under gas masks. It actually breaks the seal in reality. Thank you, nobody, but yeah. I mean, I can understand the idea of if you had a bandana on and you had a makeshift mask, then like having that over the top of your bandana like that, maybe that would make sense. Because one of the things I'm covering in tomorrow's video is the idea that with viral load theory, in theory, yeah, if you had a surgical mask under the bandana, that might work. And thank you again, nobody. But yeah, it does depend, because there's some things, if you do them, they actually almost ruin the point of having a mask on. But yeah, at the moment, I think I still need to try and remember to get around to doing a modern DIY mask video, as in cutting up old pillowcases or something, because the viral load theory is quite interesting, because if it turns out to be true, which most of the evidence is pointing to, it is literally pointing to the fact that any kind of respiratory protection, even if it's improvised, is better than nothing. Roger, it would completely depend on what it's exposed to. Some chemicals can break down filters in like 10 to 20 minutes. Others, they might last hours and hours against. I mean, in theory, DAO democracy, some company could just literally make a little tiny particle filter that would clip over an exhale valve. I think in theory that would work fine. To some degree, White Wolf, yes, because viral load theory is just the more microns you inhale, the worse it is for you. So the point is you're limiting exposure, not totally removing it. Can you set the air in your car, Arnold, to recirculate? Because in my car, you can set it between recirculate and external air. So it's fresher if you use external air, but for the last couple of weeks, I've always had it set to recirculate just because it's a bit safer. Yeah, if you just became one, Rooster, let me sort you out a code. Just a second, sorry. But yeah, the issue is that obviously if you've done it recently, which one is it? I actually tell you what, if I go on Patreon, is it Andrew on there? Thank you, Sniper Sight. I mean, it depends where you put the hose, because in theory, if you've just got a hose dangling, you're still going to have your germs coming out the bottom of the hose. So, Rooster, are you Andrew DeKyles on Patreon, or are you Mr. Potato? Because apparently I've had a couple of new Patreons today, so I need to sort invites out for all of them. So I'll do that as soon as the stream ends. Which is your one, if you let me know? Yes, well, you're one of the two. I'll send invites to both. I'll send invites to both, but yeah, because sometimes people sign up on Patreon and then don't PM me asking for a code, so I have to kind of actively go and look. But thank you for letting me know. I'll sort that out as soon as the stream ends. Good Cat says, so is the Scott a good brand of gas masks? So they seem decent to me. So I don't know anything. Yeah, I mean, if you somehow stuck a hose over the exhale valve and then put a filter on the end of the hose, I'm pretty sure that would work fine, Sniper Sight. But that's a bit overkill when it really only needs to be a bit of tissue or something. But right, Good Cats. When it comes to pre-3M Scott masks, it really depends on the mask. I'm not a big fan of the Scott GSRs, but the Scott M95s, also known as Scott M110s, are very good. The Scott M98 series is absolutely excellent. With Scott, basically, some of their masks were good and others weren't, really, in terms of quality control. The main issue was with Scott, it seemed, was closer to the time Scott got bought out. Their quality control was really slipping. If you buy a modern 3M thing that's basically Scott's name on it but made by 3M, yes, they would be excellent. Because a lot of Scott's designs were good. They're just, materials used weren't always that good. Yeah, he's recovering every day now. Fan May, thankfully. No, anomalous Anglo. Unless you're in the car with somebody else who might be infected, if you've got air set to recirculate, as Gretchen says, while you're driving, you'll be completely fine. Most of the evidence now seems to be the longer you're in close proximity to somebody who's infected, regardless of if they're coughing, sneezing, breathing heavily or whatever, that's what does it. So if you drove past a pedestrian and they were infected, I really doubt you'd have any issue. But if you had a passenger in your car, then that might be quite bad, No worry, Enrico. All I'm really doing is just regurgitating a lot of information I've found that's just not very accessible. Because at the moment, most days, when I'm just working on random things, I've got, like radio stuff on where they're talking about nothing but coronavirus or rolling news on listening to it. Especially there's, places where they interview actual doctors rather than not doing much. Because, the ones where they interview virologists, you'll get some good stuff. If you haven't seen Dr. John Campbell's channel, check his out. His videos are excellent. Yeah, it's definitely airborne, Mom Spaghetti. I think it sits technically somewhere between droplet infection and full airborne, where it's basically like droplets that can just travel very far. But if in general you mean, will it infect you as though it's airborne? Yes, basically. Yeah, Joshua, there's a bit of an argument going on here about this. Some of it is basically parks are closed or open, depending on if people have been following the rules in the area or not. But then when they close the parks because people are going out and sunbathing and doing whatever, that isn't exercise, they close the parks, but then they get lots of complaints and reopen them. I think it's can't win scenario, really. So, Yoin, I'm not sure how your name's pronounced, I'm afraid. But viral load theory is basically the more you're exposed to it, the worse it will be when you develop the illness, hence why lots of doctors are becoming critically ill or dying, because they're in wards with patients who are infected all day. Whereas somebody who might have touched a surface, then touched their face, might get, a minor cold-like symptoms or none. So there's more evidence coming out now. It seems to be based on how much of the virus you're initially exposed to, as opposed to, just how good your immune system is or whatever. Problem is, minifig, you're not going to get many full face masks unless you buy optical inserts with them or wear contact lenses that will work with glasses, because the glasses frames here will break the seal on the mask where it's there. Oh, it's just pronounced Owen. Okay, Owen. But yeah, there you go. That's viral load theory for you. Probably not Thomas Patriot, unfortunately. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of red wine anyway. I was drinking ale earlier. But Sadly, as much as alcohol is very good to use on surfaces to clean off infections and microbes and everything like that, having a high blood alcohol percentage isn't going to fix the problem. So unfortunately for all the Russians and, us Brits, simply being pissed all day won't make it go away. It'll probably make you more vulnerable, in all honesty, because you'll do stupid things. All right, thanks, Arnold. So yeah, people can check that out. I haven't seen that video, but yeah. I mean, the problem was a lot of the stuff with Corona initially was all of the actual kind of people responding to it were taking it in like the least worst case scenario, like best case scenario, where they should have probably gone from worst case scenario and then scaled back. So they first said there's no human to human transmission, and there was. Then they said, don't worry, it's only droplet borne a very short distance. Then it turns out it's basically airborne. So there's been all this stuff where I think if they handled it initially like it was a lot scarier than, they planned, they'd have probably got to grips a bit faster on it. Yeah, coughs can go like 5 to 6 meters, can't they, Grobnob, apparently, and sneezes like 78. Right, hopefully, Shrimp Zoo, you don't have Corona, but if Corona doesn't turn out to be any worse for you than mild flu symptoms, then hopefully you'll be immune, and that'll be the worst. Oh, the Wuhan Health Organization, too dumb to know. Thank you, Altrix. No worry. Metin says, is the S6 mask also washable like the video you made where you washed an S10? In theory, I can't see any reason why you can't do that with an S6. The only thing that makes the S6 very different from some other masks is that weird pressure inflatable seal on the inside of the mask. But if you washed it carefully in the sink, it wouldn't be an issue. Yes, CTB Rail, you're completely right. There's only 76 likes on my end. Rumbo said, quick question. I found your channel when I dug out my old P10. It was a bit dirty and I found your video on how to clean gas masks. Only problem is mine has a chalky mark. Any advice on how to make it look new? Right, if you want to buy some silicone lubricant, let me show you what silicone lubricant does on a mask. I've not got a cloth handy to wipe them with. But okay, so silicone lubricant. Let's get this CM6, for example. I'll spray a patch of silicone lubricant on and then show you what it looks like. Right, so I don't know if you can see how shiny that looks now, but silicone lubricant is really good at polishing like chalky looking stuff off of masks or rubber blooming. So the silicone lubricant I like is this Draper one because it doesn't have shit added to it. It's proper silicone lubricant. So I use this on metal as well and wood. It's basically acts like a general polish. It's very good for stopping dry rot as well in masks. But loads of people in the comment on video recently are like, don't use silicone lubricant, it will damage metal. It really doesn't. At least not the good silicone lubricant. It kind of evaporates on its own infinity. You kind of need to wipe it over, as if you're polishing a surface. But in terms of, you don't need to do much more than that because after a while, most of it evaporates. And then after a while, a little bit will be left on there, which will protect the rubber. If you're looking at the old, wherever it is, oh yeah, there. I've got a Martini Henry as well, but I can't show that on the stream because of YouTube's rules. Probably not English nationalist, unless it's with a robot, I'd imagine. I don't think it's that good on skin. Robert, it might be the PMKS, the modern Russian one. I'm not actually sure. But I don't have a PMKS, sadly. The PMK3 is the latest Russian military one I have. That's right, Rumbo. Thank you very much. I assume when you said P10, you meant an S10. Yeah, Draper silicone lubricant is really good stuff. Or one of the other brands that's similar to this one. It's just general, like, one of the main reasons I got it is it's safe to use on airgun seals. Oh, and thank you very much, me as well. But what silicone lubricant I got it for is it's very good for using on rubber washers inside an airgun. So essentially, it's like a combination of using a gun oil and something that won't wear into the seals. But But yeah, silicone lubricant I really like because it will polish up most things. I also used it when I cleaned up this C7 C715 CDV 715 the other day, because turns out silicone lubricant is another good thing for kind of, just getting a lot of dirt and dust off of old metal. I mean, obviously the marks that are permanently there aren't coming off where the paint's chipped and that, but it will clean off a lot of stains and things like that. What's SL Altrix? Silicone lube or something else? 3-in-1 gun oil is good as well, and 303 oil is quite good for cleaning gun type stuff. I just like silicone lubricant because it has a load of applications, so I can buy one bottle and use it for a load of different tasks. Whereas with some of the things, I have to keep using specialized oils. Mitch, what's your take on 3M 6800 of P3 filters? Well, the P3 filters will be absolutely fine. Let me look up the 6800. Is that the full face 3M mask? Yes. I've never used one, but I imagine it'd be completely fine. Thank you, Culture Critique. But yeah, we were talking about that earlier in the stream. But in what regard, Joshua? But yeah, people are definitely dying from it. I mean, every day we get a lot of people phoning in the radio begging people not to go out and do stupid things because they've had like their mum die, their sister die, when their kids die from it, or who's in critical condition or something. It's pretty hard stuff to listen to, but I think it is worth listening to it. Because in all honesty, if ever I think, although I wouldn't, going out and not doing the quarantine stuff, when you hear some grieving parent because their kids died in their like 30s or something, it really does hit home why you should be staying in, It's hard to say, Marco. In theory, you should always be clean shaven except for a moustache. That's fine, as long as it doesn't go like that far across your face. You're not meant to have stubble, but again, it really depends on how the mask fits your face. Because even if you've got a bit of a little beard or some stubble, some masks, because they have such a good face fit seal, it won't matter. A bit like masks that also seal around your hair like that, because again, they don't get broken by the hair on your head. Yeah. What Sadistic Squirrel says, that's part of the problem as well. It's why it's always good if you've got something like banana oil, isomyl acetate, to test, you doing a smell test of that as well. Because quite often you can find, even if it seems to do a pressure check, if you get a really strong smelling substance, one of the little tiny gaps in the mask, you will be able to smell the odor through there. Glad you enjoyed the videos of Bandit. Cheeky breaky to you. I'm not really a prepper, no. I've got a lot of old military antique type stuff. I'm not really a prepper. But yeah, I think the thing is, Gretchen, if you did a proper vapor and all that sort of check with a mask on, it gives you a good idea if it fits well, even if you're then going to use it with particle filters. Mostly, Nate, if I had to go out somewhere where it was quite risky. So when I just go to the pharmacy or something, I use one of my half-face masks, like that, with my glasses, because I think I've got some, shielding to my eyes. I've got a half-face respirator on. I'm only going to go to one place and come back. If I was in a supermarket for an extended period of time, then I'd probably want a full face mask. Yeah, no worry, Gretchen. Your logic is absolutely sound, because yes, if you're only using a particle filter of a particulate mask, there is no point really doing a vapor test. But yeah, vapor tests are very good to find out if you've got a really good face fit. So sometimes if you've got a mask, it's worth putting a vapor filter on to do a vapor test. And then if you're only ever using it for particle use, you're good. Do they give you any sort of PPE where you work in maniculture, as in, yeah, 28 Days Later is a very good film. Personal protective equipment. In some supermarkets now, I've seen they put like big sneeze guards over the tills, but again, people stocking the shelves have no protection. Republic of Turkey says, do you think a GP5 mask, not filter, is a favourable choice for a biohazard suit? I mean, the fact that it covers the head fully with rubber is great for such suits, in my opinion. The thing is, the GP5, as long as it's in good condition, and yeah, you get the appropriate filters for it, it's fine. It depends what you want to use it for at the end of the day, because again, if anybody said to me, would I trust a GP5 as much as, any sort of good modern mask, like a NATO one? No. But the problem is I think a lot of people do miss the point when lots of people can get GP5s cheaply, or the choice is like a GP5 or no mask. So for them, a GP5 is much better than, say, an N95 mask. Yeah, I mean, surgical masks are still better than nothing, Arnold Rimmer, but only very marginally. At least they protect you from other people. Well, as in, the person wearing the mask is not putting their germs on other people with surgical masks. Yeah, there's a lot of bus drivers dying over here, sadly, too dumb to die. And again, it's because they're not being given the equipment, and there's still lots of idiots using the bus when they have no need to use the bus. It should be essential workers only using public transport. But no, random people are just getting on the bus because I want to go for a day out. US M40 masks are pretty good. Only issue with them is you need the second skin for proper chemical weapon protection, but for viral type protection, they'd be absolutely fine. Oh, cool. I'd be very, if they were at a sensible price, Wayland, I'll probably get a Shum 2012 then. Yeah, out of all the ones I've tried, the Canadian C4 is probably my favourite mask of that kind of generation, as in the M40, S10, and, like the C4. But the M40 is very good, but yeah. Let's put the Canadian C4 on for a bit. This is basically a love child between the M40 and the S10. But all right, Henry. PMG ones are all right. Again, not for serious chemical weapon protection, but if you wanted a PMG one, put a decent filter on it, and it was still in good condition, it will protect you from 40mm peach. What hat do you mean, Altrix? The colonial hat? Dan says, Polish MP5 masks, how would you rate them amongst the rest of your collection? Appreciate the stream, extremely informative. Thanks, Dan. Right, bear in mind with Polish masks, there are the actual Polish MP5s, and then there's the original French ones. Lots of the French ones get sold as MP5s, and they're not as good. But if you get an MP5 in good condition, they're excellent masks. It's just the problem is a lot of the ones on the surplus market actually aren't the Polish ones, or they're a bit beaten up. Oh, the traffic warden. There you go. Fits quite well, actually, with this mask. Actually, that's a point, Henry. I think I saw him maybe a few streams ago, but I've not seen him on yesterday's one or today's. It's certainly better than nothing, Dial J for Josh. If it's a 3M mask with P3 filters, it should be pretty good in terms of protection. Yeah, sort of sits on there on its own. Maybe, but yeah. Yeah, Canadian C4s are actually really nice masks. But yeah, like I said, it's weird because it's kind of like the love child of an M40 and an S10. The good bits from the M40, the good bits from the S10 combined into one masks. Too dumb to die. The French masks aren't meant to be hard plastic. It's just they use such a low quality rubber that they dried out over time and turned into hard plastic. Yep, Dan, if it's got MaskPo on it, it's definitely an MP5 because MaskPo is one of the Polish mask and filter manufacturers. The French ones don't seem to have that writing on that top ridge like that. Yeah, I mean, the thing is with MP5s, you could still get one where it's like dried out and not good in one regard in that sort of bit. But yeah, at least the MP5s I've had have always been fine, you know, maybe with some minor damage to the plastic or whatever, but nothing that affects the seal. Thank you, Sir Shadow. He says, in your opinion, what is the historical helmet above 40 USD or less? About 40 USD. That is best for money. You pay that is now available on Amazon, eBay, Etsy. So something historical. Do you also want to be protective? Now, bear in mind, you're in the States, right? And I can't really easily see what ships to the States for good amounts of money. But for 40 US dollars, the best steel pots, in my opinion, in terms of protection, would be, I mean, USM1 helmets are pretty good if you can get them. But otherwise, Yugoslav, either the East German M56 or the Yugoslav ones, I've got both behind me, weirdly. So out of steel pots, I think these are some of the best steel pots designed. The Yugoslav one is kind of like a World War II German Stahlhelm that was slightly modernized. So you can see it's kind of got that Stahlhelm shape to it. But it's got a much better liner inside. This also has a really good strap system on this helmet. So basically, to tighten it, you just do that. So it works with nearly every gas mask because it's got a strap that expands. So yeah, that's the Yugo. I'm trying to remember the name of this one. Let me look up the exact name of this helmet because otherwise I'll forget. Yugoslav M59, and then it's got a second M5985 is the name of this one. So yeah, the Yugoslav or Serbian M5985 helmet is very good if you can get one for a good price. Another good one is the East German helmet. This is probably my favorite steel pot out of all of them. These were actually designed by Nazi Germany, but then they never really put them into production. So the East German M56 is basically a Stahlhelm, but where the edges are completely conical rather than being, you know, shaped. They were designed to be cheaper. These give very good protection in terms of ballistics compared to most steel helmets. And they make a really good bow noise as well because of the actual slope of the helmet. So it works a bit, you know, like slope tank armor. So there you go. So yeah, crazy things from the helmet on. But yeah, so East German M56 helmets are very good as well in terms of being really good quality steel pot helmets. But again, I don't know exactly what you'll find in the States for a good price. I mean, I've done some videos on night vision. I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly what you'd want to know. But movement sensor lights, they're very, very easy. If you buy the solar panel type movement sensor lights, all they literally are is a light you screw onto a wall somewhere. They don't connect to the electricity because they have a solar light. They have the IR light bit on them. When something goes into the IR sensor, it turns the light on. They're the type we have in our garden. Because when they break, you just literally take them down and replace them with a new one. And they get better over time in terms of battery capacity and like lumens of the LED lights. Alright, glad you like the video, Soda Pop Curtis. People seem to either really like me or hate me, because I managed to piss some people off quite a lot on here for some reason, but oh well. No, Dial J, I was interested in it. A few of my family members were in the British Army at various points, or Navy, but I was medically unfit to serve even if I wanted to. So I have a lot of interest in the stuff, but obviously was not able to ever go into it, like, properly. The LED ones are because some of them you can get are probably like 1,000+ lumens. You know, it depends how much you want to spend. I wouldn't spend too much on them, though, because a lot of them, after a year or two, you know, if you're in a place where it's damp and windy like the UK, they end up getting damp, windy, and then stop working. But in general, like, you can get ones that give off a lot of light, you know, and are fairly efficient on battery life. That's all right, Dial J for Joseph. Glad you find the stuff interesting. I don't know, sadistic squirrels, you'd have to ask them. Apparently it's the thing of not being a proper collector kind of thing. I honestly don't know. Anyway, we won't start e-drama, because like I've said before, if people don't like my content, ideally I don't think they should watch it. You know, because if I find YouTube channels I don't like, I don't actually watch their content. But the problem is you end up getting some people that seem to have an obsession with watching my videos just to constantly whinge about everything I do wrong in a video. Good quarantine movies. What have I watched recently I actually really enjoyed? Like, rather than watched and thought it was absolute wank. The Last Man on Earth would actually be a good quarantine movie, because it's kind of the scenario we're all living in now. NATO filters won't fit the GP5, sadly. Broccoli MC. But if you're printing out an adapter, if you've got a 3D printer, then that would be fine, yes. Sorry, I missed a bit to start with about the 3D printed adapter. But if you get like the one I did the video on the other day, they are very good. Again, like some people said, if you're using them against certain chemical weapons, they'd fall apart. But against particle threats or what a regular person would want a mask for, they'd be absolutely fine. The P3R filters, Enrico, the good news is, Children of Men's a good film. The P3R filters, the good news is they barely ever really need replacing. The reason being that P3 filters only really stop working when they fully clog up. They're not like vapor filters where they suddenly stop working because, the charcoal's been oversaturated. Particle filters only stop working when they actually clog. So in regards to what you've asked, you probably don't need to ever replace the filters, or if you do, like once every couple of months, assuming that you haven't damaged them. But yeah, so that's the answer to that. That's the good news. The good news being that if you've got a 3M mask with P3 filters, you are absolutely fine, and you probably never need to think about replacing them. Yeah, Band of Brothers is good, and the Pacific was good, but Band of Brothers was better. Yeah, I prefer the black and white one though, Trump, because the black and white one I think looks a bit more sinister with a lot of the shadows and things like that. I think some of the colorizations lose a lot of the tension when everything looks a bit too bright, because a lot of black and white films were shot obviously with the intention of how the contrast went between black and white. It's like why the recolors of Night of the Living Dead isn't as good, because lots of the stuff that's meant to look spooky in the dark is just too bright. But yeah, the colorization isn't bad. They've done a good job of colorizing it, but in general, a lot of black and white films look better in black and white because they filmed them at the time, knowing how it would be lit to look black and white. No Soviet officer caps designated driver. Somewhere I've got an East German officer cap. Well, I mean, yeah, if you're with a significant other or whatever, Tyler, if they get it in a minor way, but they're producing the virus, if you're intimate with them, yes, I imagine you would end up getting worse exposure. But I don't think there's been all that much studying done into that yet. That's cool, Waylon. Yeah, Henry, they should like the stream, shouldn't they? But in regards to helmets, I don't know how easily you can get them, whoever it was that was asking about helmets. Although it's not really a historical helmet because it's more modern, the Chinese are still producing these, and these are very good helmets for the price. Now, if you can find one, this is, what was the name of it? A Chinese GK80 helmet. It's basically the People's Liberation Army steel pot helmet, although they're meant to be replacing all these with Kevlar. They're still actually making these. So basically, the point is that you can buy a brand new factory-made steel pot, like not an old retro steel pot, for not that much money. And for that, they are very good. Right, CTB rail. GOS filters, depends on the size and weight you want of them. But these Czech ones are pretty good. So, oh shit, I've just realised my decimeter had fallen into there. I hope it's not damaged. How good it's not, although it needs a charge. Yeah, they're good. Also, these ones are pretty good. The Briz ones or the Breeze ones. But again, part of the problem is just simply finding the stuff for sale, because lots of filters are hard to get at the moment, and proper cost filters are even harder to get because, you know, there's less of them about anyway. No, underbite, 70% alcohol definitely won't hurt a mask. Solvents are generally stuff like acetone, you know, stuff you'd clean paint off with, and solvents would damage plastics, but rubbing alcohol isn't really a solvent. Oh, cool. The Furness masks are definitely worth getting, Titan, if you haven't got one. Yeah. Korosu, if you've got an out-of-date combination filter with the particle bit at the front, like, you know, it's ABEC P3 or whatever, or A2 P3, the P3 bit will still work fine. Because the particle bits in them are the exact same thing as, you know. Also, if people want to see something cool I got today, let me just put this on charge, and I'll put the speaker on for it. I need to leave a load of eBay feedback, actually. But just give me a second. Let me put the speaker back on this. Right. So, if it actually shows up on the screen, there we go. Right. Let's get the Turbonite. I got another nice Turbonite sample. I'll check it after the stream Altrix at the moment. Obviously, I'm streaming, and it will just distract me. But yeah. So, does it put the speaker off again? There we go. But yeah. So nice bit of Turbonite. Yeah, part of the Red Forest is on fire. I'll turn the speaker off again now because we don't want that constantly going. I'll be off in about 5 minutes anyway. I should tell you what, Altrix, let me have a quick look for you. In what sense? I have to talk to you about it afterwards, Altrix, because I don't quite understand how that could work. How you said about it. But yeah, I'll check it properly because I don't want to get distracted with stuff like that when I'm not. Well, that's because it's a new helmet. It's made out of a material that is shiny. Yeah, Charla, other than a couple of days I had where I just randomly felt quite ill, I've been fine again recently. I don't know what that was. It was like almost like a blood pressure thing. Yeah, I'll answer a few more questions before I go off. I'm just looking for actual questions, not strange statements that people are making. It's a chair I've had for years, an IKEA chair. Before this, I had like one of those mesh ones, but as cool as the mesh chairs look, the problem with the seats on the mesh chairs is dirt slowly builds up in them, and even with a hoover or shaking them upside down, you can't get it out. So they just become really grotty over time. So yeah, an actual old sort of fashioned fabric office chair is a lot better than the sort of modern ones. Yes, I do have a Bulgarian M36 helmet. It's one I need to kind of restore, Noah, because it's one where the liner in mine had completely fallen apart and the metal was awful. So I cleaned up the metal, and now I've got a very similar liner at some point I can try and attach. Yeah, well, I don't blame you, Peacemaker, but it's better safe than sorry, isn't it? Cool, let me look up that one, Honeywell one. I have a feeling, BioPrepper, before I actually get the search results up, that will be the one that looks a bit like the MSA Advantage 410, but it isn't. Yeah, it is. It's the one that looks very similar to the Advantage 410. I've not used that one, but yeah, looking at it, I can see why you like it, because it's similar to the MSA one, which is good. Wow. Wiping a mask with disinfectant is a lot faster than using UVC. With UVC, you'd have to leave something near a UVC light for a while and go out the room. Now, I've got a Scott GSR, not a FRR. Worrell says, can I do an American accent, please? There you go. Well, I have no clue where in America that would be. There's been loads of things like that, Mr. Coldraven, like permanent lung damage, permanent like testicle damage. I don't know how much of it is true, because again, with some of these things, you might get a one-off incident, and there's also a lot of this isn't peer-reviewed info yet. But I think the point is you don't want to get it, and if you get it, you don't want to get complications. Yes, as far as I'm aware, Daniel, NATO filters do work in DIN masks. At least where I've got some old 40mm DIN masks, and I tried putting more modern NATO filters on them. I didn't notice any like scratching or anything when I screwed the filter in. But I know DIN filters normally work in GOST and NATO masks fine, but I don't know if it does work the other way around. You have to ask somebody really into filter specifications. Sometimes I've even found with lots of masks that are all meant to be like 40mm NATO, that like various 40mm NATO masks, for example, some NATO filters work well on some masks and not the others. It sometimes seems that even the individual masks have, you know, slight tolerance differences or whatever. Facelift masks, Tony, are those, by facelift masks, do you mean like the ones that are kind of like the cloth sort of charcoal looking masks? Normally there's a date on the side of it somewhere, Marco. If left under it for long enough, yes, Scott, P79 UVC will damage rubber, but again, it depends how long you're leaving it there. Like modern butyl rubber masks aren't going to get damaged that quickly by UV light, because obviously they're designed for people to wear a mask outside. At the moment, I'm afraid, Michael, it might be hard for me to do videos on specific masks, just because so much is sold out or going for like 60, 70 pounds for a very simple respirator at the moment. So it's kind of, I can review stuff I've got, but ordering stuff to review at the moment is quite difficult, just because a lot of stuff is just completely out of stock everywhere. What, as in flash masks for ship sort of people, Altrix, where they used to, for like the gunners and all that. They're quite creepy looking, like cloth sort of anti-burn masks, aren't they? But yeah, I've not actually got any. If I see some on eBay, I might get one at one point, but I've never really looked into flash hoods, you know, ones. The only type of flash hood thing I've got is the one that right, the person who's been making weird comments all stream I'm getting rid of. And gamma rays and X-rays are the same thing. However, the current scientific definition is that an X-ray is basically something that doesn't come through radioactive decay. So if you produce electrons and hit them into a glass thing, that's an X-ray. Whereas if you have something that's coming off of decays, then it's a gamma ray. But the definition of X-rays and gamma rays have changed quite a lot, and there's not really a scientific consensus on that. But in terms of a gamma ray and an X-ray being the same thing, as far as detectors are aware and what they do to your DNA, they're the same thing. It's just you can produce X-rays through electronic equipment. You can't produce radiation, like gamma rays for electronic equipment. Good question, JT. I don't know. On the radio earlier, they were saying they kind of hoped we had awful weather this weekend, so we wouldn't feel bad for staying in, and the idiots wouldn't have an excuse to go out. I already answered you, Michael. I said I haven't got one because I never used one. Cheers, Megabit. Right, I'll be off now. Altrix and note, I'll check the message thing you're on about, but yeah, Fashidas are nice. Dear love. Right, see ya.